Did the old lady die yet? I glared at the guy, feeling angry. He was my ex-husband who left his blind mother to run away with his mistress. It was hard to believe he was raised by my kind mother-in-law. His words made me even angrier. You must have had it tough, huh? Now you're free to do whatever you want, though there's only so much an old lady like you can do? He laughed rudely. I hid my anger behind a smile and replied, yeah, I just inherited $3 million, so I'm going to enjoy my freedom from now on. His smirk disappeared as he realized I wasn't the person he thought I was. My name is Grace. I'm 63 now. I married young and moved in with my in-laws. Despite their kindness, my husband disappointed me. I divorced him 10 years ago when I was 53. Our kids were teenagers then, and it was tough supporting them and my blind mother-in-law. My ex-husband, John, and I met at work when I was 18. He was older and seemed reliable. We got married despite my parents' objections. I quit my job to take care of his parents and manage the household while he worked late. One day, I bumped into a former colleague of my husband's at the grocery store. Naturally, we started chatting about my husband and me. The colleague said, "Your husband, Mr. Young, always leaves work early because he's worried about you, Grace. He's such a wonderful husband." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My husband always came home late, never early. There must have been some mistake. But in the moment, all I could do was give a nervous smile and agree, yes, that's true. When I got home, I brought it up with my husband. I had intended to subtly mention it, saying something like, "You've been coming home late recently. Can't you come home a little earlier? I feel bad for your father. It seems a little embarrassing for him to be cared for by a woman. Can't you at least help him bathe?" But before I could finish, my husband snapped at me. "What? I'm working, you know. I'm not just goofing off. Tell my dad not to be so demanding." But his father wasn't asking for anything. It was just how I felt. My husband seemed unwilling to help with caregiving, and his defensiveness bothered me. I had a sinking feeling that I was right about him, but I was too scared to confront him. I had married against my parents' wishes, so I didn't have a home to return to. Plus, I worried about my in-laws' well-being. In the end, I chose to carry on as usual. Then one day, I thought about getting an electric wheelchair for my father-in-law. Currently, he managed with a cane and a manual wheelchair, but an electric one would allow him to take short strolls. If I put my blind mother-in-law in the wheelchair and pushed her, we could go on longer walks. I talked to my husband about it, expecting him to agree, but his response was lukewarm. "Huh, do we really need it?" he grimaced. "I'm barely making ends meet with my income. Do we really need to spend money on that?" We weren't wealthy, but if the wheelchair could bring even a little joy to my in-laws, I didn't see it as a waste of money. So, I suggested to John that maybe we could take out a loan to buy the electric wheelchair for my father-in-law. He seemed somewhat agreeable, warning me not to cause any trouble. I couldn't tell my in-laws exactly what he said, but I gave them a positive message, indicating we could borrow from the bank. My father-in-law was thrilled, and we went to the bank together to set up the loan and purchase the wheelchair. They were overjoyed with it. However, not long after, my father-in-law passed away. My mother-in-law and I were devastated, but John complained, saying he left us with debt. He seemed to have forgotten the happiness the wheelchair brought them. Now it was just my mother-in-law and me living together. She could manage some things herself despite being blind, so my caregiving duties lessened. John suggested we have children, and despite my doubts about him, we eventually had two. But even after the kids were born, he didn't change much. My days were consumed with chores and childcare, but my mother-in-law's happiness kept me going. Despite all this, John continued to come home late, even on his supposed days off. His lack of affection towards my mother-in-law and the children became more apparent. One Saturday, he planned to work instead of taking my mother-in-law to her medical checkup, which we had arranged beforehand. He argued that it was my job as a housewife to take care of her. His words hurt me deeply. I realized then that he only married me because he thought I would take care of his parents. I was filled with regret for marrying him. When I confronted him, he left and never returned. A few days later, he sent a letter divorcing me and stating he wanted nothing to do with the debt or us. Exhausted and hurt, I decided to inform my children and mother-in-law about the situation before moving forward with the divorce. My mother-in-law was the most shocked when she heard about the divorce. She kept repeating how sorry she was while crying. "You've made me happy, Grace, along with my grandkids Mary and Jack. But if you're getting divorced, then I'm like a stranger. I'll live on my own. It'll take time, but I will move out," she said. I replied firmly, holding her hand, "You're no different from my real mother, and you're the only grandmother for my children. We don't need to worry about our future. We're still a family even after the divorce. Let's live together as we have been." My mother-in-law thanked me through her tears. However, I couldn't help but worry. Without my husband, even for all of his flaws, the financial situation became dire. I searched desperately for a job, but no one would hire me after being a housewife for so long. Mary and Jack offered to work, but my mother-in-law intervened, suggesting I focus on continuing education without worrying about work. We were puzzled by her suggestion, but life continued as usual, even feeling more comfortable than before. I filed for divorce through my lawyer, with no desire to see my ex-husband again. My mother-in-law wanted to report him missing, but I couldn't bring myself to care. Eventually, she passed away, joining my father-in-law. My ex-husband, her son, never appeared again despite her efforts to find him. Now, unexpectedly, my ex-husband stands before me while I'm out shopping. He tries to engage in conversation, accompanied by a much younger woman. His disrespectful remarks about my deceased mother-in-law infuriate me. But I hold back my anger. Instead, I calmly inform him of my inheritance and the smooth process it was without him around. His reaction is shock and disbelief. As I turn to leave, he desperately calls out to me, but I walk away, leaving him behind, pale and stunned. I couldn't resist feeling a sense of satisfaction. I had no intention of telling him anything, but perhaps he should know how foolish he's been. "You're kidding me, and I'm her son, right? I didn't hear about any inheritance. I should have a right to a share too," he protested. His words only made me smirk. "Well, yes, but you were gone. Did you know that after 7 years of disappearance, you are considered legally dead? So your mother-in-law's inheritance was willed to me, your eldest son and eldest daughter. You have no role in this anymore," I explained. My ex-husband looked dumbfounded, and I almost burst out laughing. I understood why my mother-in-law had told me to file a missing persons report after she had passed. A lawyer appeared, explaining everything to me. My mother-in-law's family owned land, and despite severing ties, she had the right to inherit. She had never disclosed it, and we were able to live without any worries thanks to her inheritance. Once I had asked her how she managed her money, and she replied, "I'm using it as I please to live a happy life with my family." Though it wasn't a pension, she spent it freely, and we gratefully accepted her offer. The inheritance she received was substantial, far more than she could ever use in her lifetime. However, the existence of my husband posed a problem. If things remained the same, he would inherit everything. But during her consultation with a lawyer, my husband disappeared. She believed he had finally cut ties with us. She was sad to part from us, but planned to move into a nursing home with assisted living, using up almost all of her inheritance to avoid leaving any troubles behind. My eldest son, eldest daughter, and I all reassured her that we saw her as a family member and wanted to continue living as we had been. It was a joyous moment for my mother-in-law. Wanting to pass on her inheritance to us, she followed her attorney's advice and filed a missing person report for my husband. Following the law, after 7 years, he was legally treated as if he had passed away. When my mother-in-law passed away 1 year later, her inheritance was passed on through lineage to her oldest son and daughter, in place of my husband. Though I had no rights to inheritance, she left a will including me as well, ensuring we received her loving legacy. Upon hearing my words, my ex-husband was left in shock, mouth agape. It served him right. He then contacted me, claiming he should have a share in the inheritance. I couldn't believe how audacious he was. There's no inheritance for someone who's legally dead. I've told him many times, but he's not convinced and insists on discussing it further. I consulted an attorney. For my ex-husband to inherit anything, there would have to be various procedures, such as retracting the missing person report. I had no intention of giving him a single penny. If he wanted to inherit, he would also have to pay inheritance tax. When I told him this, he fell silent. Our children were present during our discussion. He claimed he couldn't take off work or handle the procedures, insisting we should pay his share. I was disgusted by his defiance. Apparently, he's now working a day-to-day job and struggling financially. He had left his previous job due to chronic absences and owed a debt to a previous lover. Even when he explained this, I couldn't understand him. Then, I asked about the woman he was with the other day. He arrogantly replied that she's the one he's been looking for. But they're not married, only together for half a year. My eldest son couldn't help but laugh, while my oldest daughter and I were speechless. When I asked about the woman he left with after our divorce, he said she couldn't make him happy and left nonchalantly. It seems like my ex-husband hasn't quite realized that he's been the one getting dumped all this time. He's been flitting from one woman to another, trying to cling to his youth. You're an old man. Stop acting like you're still young, I advised him, but it fell on deaf ears. He insisted that his current girlfriend was his destined woman, and I knew there was no use arguing with him. Thanks to our encounter, I found out where he lives now. Apparently, he's in an apartment in the next town over, under his girlfriend's name. My oldest son, using the money my mother-in-law gave us, bought the whole building and became the landlord. He didn't do it to help his father. Instead, he's strict about rent collection, unlike the previous landlord. It's like his way of saying, "You've caused enough trouble. Now it's time to face the consequences." My ex-husband eventually came begging for forgiveness, admitting he failed as a parent and a spouse. But I couldn't just forgive and forget. He asked if Jack could cut him some slack on the rent, but I reminded him that if he had been a better father, he wouldn't be in this situation. My words left him speechless, and he left without a word. In the end, he got kicked out of his apartment due to rent arrears and ended up in a rundown place with drafty rooms. It seems he's still struggling day by day, taking whatever odd jobs he can find. He even broke up with the woman he was with, probably because he couldn't support her anymore. Our family, on the other hand, is thriving. Thanks to my mother-in-law's legacy. We've invested wisely in real estate and stocks, ensuring a steady income. We have time for leisure activities like traveling, and my eldest daughter is getting married to a kind and caring man. Despite the hardships we faced, we've overcome them and found happiness in the present.